Hello, good evening, and welcome. I'm Simon Bestwick.
And I'm Gemma Files. And this, of course, is No
No dark,
Darkness But
but
Ours.
ours. Excellent. And so this is just a little short piece here because we've been uploading our stuff onto YouTube as well as to Anchor, and we've actually started getting some really cool comments on the YouTube stuff, including one from a user called BA, who that had quite an interesting one, which we thought was probably worth responding to. I also want the origin story of how a Brit and a Canadian became such good buddies, and what's going on with night crawling or whatever novel is up for next for Gemma. Opinions on Remember You're a One Ball. I remember when you talked about bullying and new night crawling plays into that, but I was hoping you'd mention the Quentin S. Crisp novel in that regard. I've got to admit, with Remember You're a One Ball, I had it. And it did not survive one of the clear outs of my books. And the worst thing is, because we clear a load of books out, obviously we packed up. There's an online firm that buys up secondhand books, and turned out if they bought it for like 10p, and then I went online and found secondhand copies of it going for like nearly 50 quid. So I am hereby publicly apologising to Quentin S. Crisp, because I did actually flick through that book and read bits of it and remember thinking this is bloody good, but it's also, I think possibly at that time I was maybe feeling a little bit fragile and in need of something that wasn't quite so unsparing, and put it aside for another time, and of course it ended up clearing it out. So I truly repent of that, and if I ever get my hands on another copy, or if it ever becomes available on ebook, that'd be great. Apparently it was done in only like a limited edition of 100 copies. And Chomu Press, who produced it, are now defunct. So that's so I'm kicking myself basically. Did you ever read that one, Gemma?
No, I never have.
No. From what I remember, it's about a guy going back to teach in a school near where he grew up, but essentially it's been a lot of memories abroad. I think the central conceit of it is that sort of the apparently random bullying of anyone who's a little bit different that happens at school is actually purposive. It's that society is engaged in the project of deliberately manufacturing scapegoats to sort of torment and sacrifice in the name of the greater the good, which is like a truly, for those of us who went through bullying at school, that's a truly horrifying thought. It's like I think somebody said, possibly in connection with some of Reggie Oliver's stories, that the great sort of modern man's great fear is not that death is oblivion, but that it isn't.
Yeah,
there is actually
true.
Something beyond death, and it's not what we've sort of told ourselves it is. It's actually that there's actually something, could be something quite, could be just as horrifying as the world we live in.
Yeah, exactly. As horrifying and as boring.
Yeah. As for the origin story of how a Brit and a Canadian became such good friends, I think we probably goes back to, was it World Horror, wasn't it? And
yeah, it was. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We met there. We had a good time chatting, and since then, when it became possible to message each other over Facebook, we started doing that, and things really blew up during the pandemic, I think.
Yeah.
Just before, because of the whole collapse of Cheesian thing.
Yes, of course, that as well. And of course, we'd often, whenever there was like an interesting book or a movie that we'd both read, we'd both be messaging back and forth, and eventually at some point it was like, what if we could actually record ourselves talking about all this shit, and put it out there, and that's kind of where it's gone. So this is actually the podcast has been great because it just basically means I get to hang out with my buddy in Toronto and chat shit about horror for
exactly.
hours on end.
I will point out that there is an ALD alliance between the United Kingdom and Canada generally. That certainly the English-speaking part of Canada has always preferred to identify itself culturally with England and Europe as opposed to the United States, to make a distinction between, these two things.
I don't think Britain and Canada have ever actually had a war, have they?
No,
that I know of. No.
No, we've always just supported just supported whatever was going on until Britain decided to kick us to the curb. It's like, well, we don't really get anything out of you whatsoever. So
yeah. We've had 2 punch-ups with those bloody ungrateful colonials south of your border, but you guys are much cooler, you have healthcare.
Yeah, there's that. Hopefully we have healthcare to going forward, because there's certainly some attempts to get rid of it. Anyway,
God, why do people become conservatives? What goes wrong with their brains? I don't know. It's maybe
idea.
Yeah, just aim for the head.
But yeah, there's like this real Anglophone kind of, bedrock in English-speaking Canada. So I guess we're brought up to kind of think of ourselves as honorary English people. So
yes, I think because Jack was Giles Blunt who wrote the John Cardinal books, which we're both fans of the TV series. I think he sort of said that his parents' passports by rights should have simply read British beyond belief. He had a wonderful anecdote about when he worked in New York, working for as a waiter in a hotel, and he had to provide room service to the then Israeli ambassador Abba Eban. His wife, who of course his wife seemed to assume that he spoke French, and of course which he didn't. He was trying to, and he said he was trying to sort of serve them, whereas Abba Eban was on the phone to somebody shouting at them, and Giles Blunt accidentally upset a dish of scrambled eggs into Mrs. Eban's lap, and she started to berate him in French. And Abba Eban just turned his back on the whole thing and was bellowing, no, I will not ask Israel to live that way again. And apparently he punctuated all this with, to quote Giles Blunt here, the most ballistic farts. It sounded like a St. Bernard barking. The guy Blunt has a real knack for humour, which sometimes gets lost in the sort of the poetic bleakness of the Cardinal books.
Not a lot of uproarious, laughing.
I need to. It's possibly time for a reread of the Cardinal books. There, it's always a good plan.
I told you, but my son has 2 stuffed cardinals.
The birds.
Yeah, exactly. And one is, a male cardinal and red and everything. And the other one is a female cardinal. And if you squeeze them, they give the various cries of the cardinals.
What do you mean the stuffed toys?
Yeah. And
I was visualizing taxidermy for a second.
No, yeah. And that would be interesting, but no. And so he used to refer to them as the cardinal bird and Mrs. Cardinal Bird. And I said at one point, do they have names? And he said, he said, Mrs. Cardinal Bird was named Lise. And of course, Mr. Cardinal Bird was named John.
So those influences just seep in. So yes, for anyone who's not read the Giles Blunt's John Cardinal novels, then you really should. They're fantastic.
And then you'll understand what the fuck we've been talking about.
Yes, that does help. So that is our origin story, and that was unfortunately, we don't.
So in terms of my next thing, at the moment I am trying to concentrate on a novel that I started writing during the first year of the pandemic, called In Red Company, which is set basically at the end of the Anglo-Saxon period, and what was it? I was describing it as sort of like a combination of Midsommar and The Devils.
Okay.
Except
Well, I can take my money. This point's
yeah,
take
you
my
know,
money.
and essentially, I'm concentrating on that because Nightcrawling is going to get done. It is going to get done, but it's depressing and it makes me feel bad because it's one of the worst part of my life ever. I will say that the short story "Pair of Anguish," which I wrote for Ellen Datlow's tribute to Shirley Jackson, is sort of from Nightcrawling in the same way that, say, the short story Pony is from Caitlin R. Kernan's The Red Tree, in that it is a piece of fiction that one of the characters in Nightcrawling would have created about their past. So if you want to get a preview of what Nightcrawling might be like, then you could read Pair of Anguish.
Yeah, don't wear a pair of anguish.
Definitely don't wear one.
Yeah, you'll end up in accident and emergency with and you'll have some very embarrassing questions to answer.
I was interested to note that you almost never hear about Pairs of Anguish, which is good. But Satan's Slaves 2 has a Pair of Anguish in it.
Right.
Not that it's ever identified as.
Yeah, I think people tend to just improvise. I mean, my cousin is a can't remember if I've told you this before. Is a consultant with accidents and emergency departments in a very busy city hospital, and basically Saturday night is apparently the night that people are always coming in with various things stuck up their backsides, who always some totally reasonable explanation, like they were cleaning the house naked and slipped
and they fell on it.
Fell. Yes, I fell on this, I swear. One of these days somebody is actually going to fall down when undressed and land arse first on something, and they will genuinely be going in with that explanation and telling the truth, and no one will believe them. And we can
like an unexploded shell.
I heard about that one. What the fuck? I mean, it can be hard to hit your I'm imagining chess going, hit it. Like,
go on and hit that.
I think even he might have drawn the line at trying to tickle his prostate with a high explosive shell. But
that's just dumb, son. That's just dumb.
That is just dumb. But people do have done dumber things in an attempt to
that's certainly true,
to enjoy themselves. So yes, there you go, Bea. You possibly got more than you really wanted to know about some matters, but that is our origin story. Sadly, neither of us have read all of Remember You're a One Ball. If we get a chance to, then we'll certainly come back and talk about it, because I think it is. Yeah. I think it's probably a book that both of us would find very interesting, that would want to read. So maybe it'll definitely. If it comes out as an ebook, I'll download it. I'll download it instantly. Yeah. And yes, so there's the story about what Gemma has coming up next. So there we go. So that's the end of this little mini segment. And we will be back soon with more stuff at a greater length. But until then, I've been Simon Bestrick.
I've been Gemma Files, and this, of course, has been No Darkness.
No darkness.
But ours.
But ours.